Obviously, I've not yet had the opportunity to read the report of the COVID inquiry in full. I only received it at 4 p.m, so I'm still working my way through the detail. What I would say firstly is thank you to the inquiry for what looks like a very detailed and comprehensive assessment. I know that given the unprecedented and highly uncertain nature of what we all faced in early 2020, that it was inevitable that mistakes and misjudgments would be made, and I have no doubt that I made my share of those, and that's a burden I will carry for the rest of my life. But all of the decisions that were taken at that time were taken on the basis of the best information and advice that we had available to us. The inquiry has concluded that restrictions should have been introduced earlier, and I agree with that. I said as much in my own evidence to the inquiry. That said, it's a view of mine based now on hindsight. At the time, the decisions and the timing of decisions was based on the best advice and information that we had available to us. The second strand I want to address is the inquiry's reflection. I think that's a fair word, that decision making in the Scottish Government might have been overly centralised. My ministers and all relevant officials played a full part in decision making. However, it was a very conscious and deliberate decision of mine at the outset of the pandemic to lead from the front and to make very clear that the buck stopped with me. And I want to be clear today that I stand by that decision, and if the clock was to be turned back, I would make that decision again. The daily briefings I did were my way of sharing with the public what we knew and didn't know, how that was changing, what we were asking them to do and why. And that very visible and consistent leadership, I think, was the right approach to take. And there is literally not a day goes by, even now, when I don't hear from members of the public how important they thought that approach was. So I obviously will reflect on all of the inquiry's conclusions, although it's now for current government to take forward its recommendations. I do appreciate the acknowledgement in the inquiry report that the very cautious lifting of restrictions on the part of the Scottish Government in summer 2020 and the targeted measures we introduced in the autumn of 2020 were the right thing to do and avoided a second national lockdown at that stage. But clearly there is much to process and much to absorb from this report.